Senate will come to order. Mr. Schaffler, please call the roll.
Senators Amabile, Baisley, Ball, Bridges,
Excused.
Bright, Carson, Catlin, Cutter, Danielson, Doherty, Exum, Frizzell, Gonzalez, Hendrickson, Judah, Kipp, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundin, Marchman, Michelson-Genet, Mullica, Pelton B, Pelton R, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Snyder, Sullivan, Weissman, Winter, Senate District 17 vacant. Mr. President.
Let's do this. The morning roll call is 33 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, 1 vacant. We have a quorum. Senator Judah, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Pelton R.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I took a little extra time to get here so you guys could really think about maybe giving me a yes vote this morning. So with that, I move that the Senate Journal of March 11, 2025 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the delayed motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Mr. Schaffler, please add Senator Bridges to the roll. You got it. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Joint Resolution 10, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 81, 83, 147, 183, and 188, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 154, correctly revised, House Bill 1016, 1025, 1063, 1070, 1091, and 1155, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1009, correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 28.
Committee reports.
Committee on Finance. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 11 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 50 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 172 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with the recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege by the President. Other President.
You have heard the motion.
President
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order for consideration for moments of personal privilege. Senator Coleman.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, distinguished members of the Senate and honors guests, today we recognize the dedication, scholarship, and civic leadership of University of Denver students who played a vital role in advancing the 5 Points Business Improvement District and the Walton Street Corridor. Through rigorous research, analyzing data, engaging stakeholders, and developing strategic insights, these students contributed to revitalizing one of Denver's most historic and culturally significant districts. City building requires commitment, and DU students embrace this challenge, applying academic training to real-world issues affecting businesses, residents, and the broader community. Their work, guided by Professor Margie Karish, demonstrates the power of community-engaged research and was presented before city leaders, including Chief of Police Ron Thomas, Councilman Darrell B. Watson, District Attorney John Walsh, and 5 Points BID Executive Director Norman Harris, CFO Dilpreet Jammu, and leaders from the mayor's office and Denver Arts and Venues. The relationship between DU and 5 Points BID exemplifies how higher education drives meaningful change. Over the next 2 years, DU students will continue to bring fresh perspectives and research-driven strategies to support a thriving Walton corridor. This is not just work that they're doing, but I'm sure across all of our districts around the state of Colorado, we have young folks at our universities engaged in making sure that we're continuing to sustain and build our cities and our state. To our students, your efforts matter. Your impact will be felt throughout Denver for years to come. Please stand and be recognized. Members, join me in welcoming these guests. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Yeah. Yesterday, he said he didn't agree with everything you did, but he really appreciated the process. I just want to make sure you knew that. I went to my women to refer to you, and he went to this one.
Majority Rodriguez.
You guys can fight amongst yourselves. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of SR 007.
Senate Resolution 007 concerning the designation of March 25th as Women's History Month in Colorado, and in connection therewith acknowledging the countless contributions that women have made in history and to contemporary society.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Resolution 25007 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Schaffler, please read SR 007 at length.
Whereas Women's History Month is an annual celebration in March to recognize and honor the profound and enduring contributions that women have made throughout history in every sphere of life, women have been leaders every step of the way, securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity. And whereas through their contributions to the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and especially the peace movement, women have worked to create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas March 8th is International Women's Day, a global celebration of the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, and a call to action for advancing gender equality worldwide. And whereas women have played a critical role in shaping history, from warriors to world leaders, artists to activists, educators to entrepreneurs, and scientists to social reformers, and their stories are often untold or underrepresented. And whereas March 25th is Equal Pay Day and is used to raise awareness about the ongoing gender pay gap and how the pay gap varies significantly among different communities, particularly for women of color. And whereas women and girls contribute to every sector of society and deserve to have their rights and opportunities protected and enhanced regardless of their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic background. And whereas throughout history, women have fought tirelessly for equal rights, justice, and recognition, often overcoming systemic barriers, prejudice, and inequality to create lasting social change, and have exemplified extraordinary courage and resilience, breaking barriers and leaving legacies that continue to inspire generations of women around the world, and working tirelessly to ensure that the doors opened by those who came before us remain open for the next generation of women leaders, thinkers, and change makers. And whereas women have made significant strides in economic empowerment, establishing businesses, securing wealth, and leading industries, while challenging societal norms and expanding economic opportunities for women of all races and backgrounds, and have demonstrated leadership, ingenuity, and persistence in achieving success. And whereas Colorado was the first state to give women the right to vote through a popular election and the first state to swear women into the General Assembly, and Colorado women have always been at the forefront of political and civic engagement, advocating for the rights of all people and shaping state policy. The first women elected to the Colorado General Assembly were Clara Cressingham, Frances S. Clock, and Carrie C. Hawley. And whereas past women of distinction and honorable mention within the Colorado General Assembly include Arie Parks Taylor, the first African-American woman elected to the Colorado General Assembly, Polly Baca, the first minority woman and first Latina elected to the Colorado State Senate, the first Latina in the nation to serve in both the House of Representatives and the Senate of her state legislature, and the first Latina to serve in leadership in any state legislature within the United States. And Norma Anderson, the first woman to serve as majority leader in both the Colorado House of Representatives and the Colorado State Senate. And whereas women legislators play a pivotal role in addressing difficult social and economic issues and helping our country and the state of Colorado prepare for the future, and Colorado currently has 52 women serving in the General Assembly, which is the largest number of women in the legislature in Colorado's history, and women make up almost 60% of the membership of the House of Representatives now. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, 1, that the Colorado Senate hereby honor the achievements, contributions, and resilience of women throughout history, celebrating the strength, wisdom, and courage of all women who have shaped our world, and 2, that we encourage the continued celebration of Women's History Month as a means to reflect on the achievements of women past, present, and future, and to inspire ongoing efforts toward a future in which gender equality is fully realized, in which every woman has an opportunity to succeed, and which the power of women's voices is valued and respected in every corner of Colorado. And 3, that we commit to advancing the goals of women's empowerment, education, and equality by continuing to support policies that eliminate barriers to opportunity, recognizing the indispensable role that women play in building thriving economies, vibrant communities, and peaceful societies. And 4, that we recognize that while we have made significant progress, there is much work left to be done to create a world where every woman, regardless of her background, race, or circumstance, has the opportunity to reach her fullest potential, and that we commit to a future in which the contributions of women are valued, celebrated, and reflected in every aspect of society today, tomorrow, and always. Be it further resolved that we, the Colorado Senate, recognize the month of March 2025 as Women's History Month in Colorado and invite the people of this state to explore the critical economic, cultural, and social roles that women have played and continue to play in every sphere of life in Colorado and in the United States.
Discussion. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, please have a seat. I'm honored to be here recognizing the achievement, contributions, and resilience of women throughout history, celebrating the strength, wisdom, and courage of all women who have shaped our world. Women's History Month provides young girls with the opportunity to learn about the achievements of women who have shaped history, whether in politics, science, the arts, sports, or activism. These role models help young girls envision what they can achieve, inspiring them to dream big and believe in their potential. By highlighting the stories of powerful women, young girls can see that there is no limit to what they can accomplish, whether they aspire to be a scientist, an entrepreneur, a leader, and yes, a politician. I've spent my career supporting women, women's issues, encouraging and promoting their skills and leadership inside and outside this building. I'm so proud of all they have accomplished. When young girls learn about the contribution of women like Marsha P. Johnson, who was one of the many that led the Stonewall riots throughout history, it can significantly boost their confidence and sense of self-worth. It helps them understand that their voices, ideas, and action matter, and that they can have a lasting impact on the world.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have the opportunity to vote on a Senate resolution to honor and commemorate Women's History Month and International Women's Day. We highlighted a few of the women whose shoulders we stand on in this building, and I couldn't be more proud to continue to do the work for which they paved the way, while ensuring that doors stay open for those who follow. I'm really proud to be the co-chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus and work with these women in this chamber today. By recognizing women's history, we can better understand the systems of inequality that have historically limited women's rights and opportunities. This awareness can help dismantle these structures and encourage a more equitable society. Women's history shows how far we've come and also reminds us of the work still left to do in achieving gender equality. Celebrating the achievements and honoring the struggles of women throughout history can inspire younger generations, especially girls and young women, to pursue their dreams and fight for their rights. When women hold elected office, it sends a powerful message to young people that they too can aspire to leadership positions. Representation in politics helps break down barriers and encourages diverse voices to be part of the political process. It is essential for young girls to see people like them in positions of influence. Today, women make up 52% of the Colorado legislature. I'm so proud to work with all of these wonderful women to ensure that we continue to pave the way for those after us and show what capable, incredible leaders women can be. Let's continue to demand better for ourselves, for those after us, and do those that came before us proud. Let's continue to work together for our constituents and the betterment of all Coloradans.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this resolution. No disrespect to my colleagues on this side of the aisle, but I think that the senator from Brighton, the senator from Castle Rock, the senator from Grand Junction are the strongest voices in y'all's caucus. Love and respect. Yeah, you better. I'll also say that actually running this resolution in this moment right now is important for us to do because when I logged on to my Google Calendar this Saturday, there was no mention of International Women's History Day. That level of erasure may seem subtle and trite. But if women cannot be what they cannot see, it then becomes that much more important for us to say the things out loud. Earlier this week, in Congress, a committee chair misgendered Congresswoman Sarah McBride. And when the ranking Democratic member of that committee asked for a duly elected member of Congress to be referred to by her proper title, that committee chair adjourned the hearing outright. That's the way in which erasure plays out, in the niceties and subtleties of decorum. In the thank you. And the decisions that we make to either acknowledge the extent to which the accomplishments, hard-fought, battle-tested, and being tested again here today. Let's be clear. This is not an acknowledgement of only the history and the legacy that makes me being here in this well possible. But those fights are very much playing out today. And so I want to rise and thank the women for bringing the Women's Caucus and the senators from Jefferson County and from Westminster for bringing forward this important resolution, because in this moment, visibility matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Mr. President. To begin, I want to thank the resolution sponsors for their work on this important resolution. I very much appreciate the ability to have a conversation around the verbiage in this resolution and to work together on finding some good common ground. In this chamber, we all came here with life experiences that define us, they shape our character. And I just want to talk to you very briefly about a small area of my life that has shaped me forever. 20-year-old Lisa was an engineering student at the University of Colorado Boulder. And that was a time when that was not really a super popular academic field for women. We were not welcome by many. By some, we were. I specifically remember walking into class on the first day, and I'd be the only woman in the entire classroom. So 20-year-old Lisa had this quote framed on my wall by a woman named Charlotte Whitten, and this is how it goes. "Whatever women do, they must do twice as well as men to be thought half as good." Luckily, this is not difficult. Well, actually, that's not true. It's really, really, really hard. It's really, really hard. But that is the world that my mother, your mother, my grandmother, that's the world they lived. If they wanted to do anything really outside the home, that was their world, and that was my world. I'm old, right? So I remember those days. But in 1972, Title IX was enacted, and that opened doors. For the first time, that opened doors for women. It ensured access for women in education and athletics. It protects us. Thank God today's world is different from 1972 or 1962 or 1952. And that my daughter and my 3 granddaughters and any granddaughters that I have to come, they don't have to live that because of the work we have done and the work that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I don't align with her politically, but by God, she was an amazing woman. She opened doors for women in the legal profession that I don't know how many decades it would have taken. She was amazing. So I'm here to say, women and girls deserve protection. We do. My granddaughters do. They deserve equal academic, athletic, and professional opportunities because that verbal middle finger that Charlotte Whitten gave to the public and private sectors to those employers who had for years and years and years discriminated against women. She gave them the verbal middle finger, but, you know, we shouldn't have to work twice as hard to be thought of as half as good. We shouldn't. That needs to go away. So again, I want to thank the resolution sponsors. I appreciate your work. We simply cannot quite get there today, and because I do believe that women and girls deserve the opportunities and protections that are afforded to them, we will be a no vote. Thank you very much for your time.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of SR 007. Are there any no votes? Senators Simpson, Frizzell, Catlin, Baisley, Rich, Pelton R, Carson, Bright, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B, Mr. Minority Leader. With a vote of 23 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, SR 25007 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Michelson, Janae, Mr. Majority Leader, Colker, Danielson, Marchman, Weissman, Henriksen, Kipp, Gonzalez, Judah, Ball, Sullivan, Snyder, Bridges, Amabile, Exum, Mullica, Doherty, Roberts. Please add the president.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to recognize the women that are joining us today in the chamber from the Women's Foundation of Colorado, the Women's Foundation and
I'm so sorry, Senator Cutter, I apologize. We actually need a motion to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just informed that I would like to make a motion that we proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege.
The motion is to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We'll proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you. So, welcome to the members.
Now you have to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Oh my goodness. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. Anything else? Are we good? Are we good? Okay, so thank you very much. And thank you to the members of the Women's Foundation of Colorado who are joining us today. The Women's Foundation catalyzes community to advance and accelerate economic opportunities for Colorado women and their families. They do wonderful work in the community, and we're really pleased that they could join us here for this resolution. Thank you.
Senator Weissman.
Thank you, Madam President. While we are doing personal privilege, I would like to ask for a moment as well.
Granted.
Thank you. Somewhere up there in the gallery, lines of sight are challenging, is my predecessor. Former Representative Ryden served Aurora for 8 years in House District 36. We were speaking about standing on the shoulders of strong women. This is an example of that. she was somebody who kept her head down and did the work and tried to not get caught up in the drama of this place, and that is a model of legislating that I have tried to follow. I learned about this place from her, and she continues to remain involved in days like today with a number of organizations that have concern about what we do here, so I just wanted us to acknowledge her presence today. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a brief senatorial 5 for a picture. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Madam President. We are going to have a brief recess, and we really have appreciated working with all the women in this chamber, including our fantastic women from the side of the aisle, and we appreciated all your feedback on this resolution and your comments today. And given that we have a historic number of women senators, we were hoping we could do a picture in the well together for a moment.
All right, we'll take a brief recess. The Senate will come back to order. Third reading of bills, final passage. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1070 by Representatives Bradfield and Ryden and Senator Michelson-Jeannet concerning the conditions when electroconvulsive treatment may be performed on a minor. House Bill 1016 by Representatives Stewart and Senators Michelson-Jeannet and Rich concerning authorizing an occupational therapist to prescribe durable medical equipment. House Bill 1155 by Representatives Bradfield and Espinosa and Senators Pelton R. and Danielson concerning the authority at a general or congressional vacancy election of the candidate nominated to be on the ballot by a participating political party to choose the watchers and count facilities.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the passage of all the bills on third reading of bills, final passage consent calendar, which are House Bill 1070, House Bill 1016, and House Bill 1155.
Is there any discussion of any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills on third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, the consent calendar is passed. Third reading of bills, final passage. Senatorial 5. Elected to do co-sponsors. So with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, 1070 is passed. Co-sponsors. Okay. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, 1016 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Kipp, Judah, Winter, Amabile, Cutter, Majority Leader, Roberts, Ball, Senator Coleman, with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, House Bill 1155 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senator Hinrichsen, Senator Roberts, Senator Liston, Senator Cutter, Senator Rich, Senator Catlin, Senator Coleman. Please add the president. Now, third reading of bill's final passage. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 183?
Senate Bill 183 by Senators Rodriguez and Doherty and Representative Garcia and McCluskey concerning coverage for certain pregnancy-related services and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the third reading and final passage of Senate Bill 183 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 183. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senator Simpson, Senator Pelton B., Senator Kirkmeyer, Senator Bright, Senator Frizzell, Senator Carson, Senator Catlin, Senator Pelton R., Senator Liston, Senator Baisley, Senator Rich. With a vote of 22 aye, 12 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, Senate Bill 183 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senator Winter, Senator Kipp, Senator Judah, Senator Gonzalez, Senator Weissman, Senator Ball, Senator Marchman, Senator Cutter, Senator Sullivan, Senator Danielson, Senator Snyder, Senator Coleman, Senator Bridges, Senator Mullica, Senator Roberts, and Senator Amabile. Please add the president. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 188?
Senate Bill 188 by Senators Coleman and Rodriguez and Representatives McCluskey and Duran concerning the payment of the expenses of the Legislative Department.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 188 on third reading and final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Kulker.
Thank you, Madam President. Appreciate the time and appreciate the work from the bill sponsors on this bill and the discussion and the debate that happened yesterday. I did not participate in the debate. I just wanted to re-emphasize some points that were made yesterday and speak to the members here about the urgency that we have with our budget this year. One of the questions that I have in regards to our expenditures, besides what was brought up yesterday and what was amended, is the money that stays in the legislative fund. We have, according to the document, $11 million after our expenditure that stays in the cash fund. And with our $1 billion shortfall, I've been spending this session, along with a number of our colleagues and the JBC, doing our own research, trying to find where we can find that money to fill that $1 billion with a B dollar shortfall. Every dollar counts, and we have been cutting small appropriations, like currently COYAC at $50,000, which we'll bring up later. We've been cutting small appropriations in the tens of thousands of dollars. But doing the math, it is hard to come up with $1 billion with tens of thousands of dollars in cuts. And when we see $11 million sitting in a fund, we need to know what is going to happen with that. I have been emailing departments. I have been emailing even our state controller about how money is encumbered and where money could be in large amounts, in the millions of dollars, on how we can address this $1 billion shortfall. Many of those cuts are temporary or short term. They're not sufficient enough for the long term, but right now we're on a year-to-year basis. We need to find both long-term cuts and short-term cuts. And so my concern with this is where this money is going to end up after the expenditures are done, where the leftover dollars are going to be. I've been assured we can have those discussions in the long bill. I've been assured that we can talk about this and make sure it's moved, because I've been asking every department, if you have cash funds and leftover money, can we make sure that's moved back into the general fund to cover these cuts? And we should be taking the lead on that in the legislature in our own budget. There's great work that is done here, long hours that are worked here by our staff members, by our nonpartisan staff. And this in no means is a reflection of our lack of appreciation. I absolutely appreciate everything that's done here. But we also owe the people of the state answers on how we budget our money. And so I'm not afraid to ask those questions. I'm not afraid to ruffle some feathers, because I want to know. And I'm doing my part, and I'm asking our members, are you doing your part? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I would echo some of the comments of the good senator from Centennial. At the Joint Budget Committee, we're asking every department, every branch of government, every other elected official to cut their budgets. If they're coming in with increases, we're basically saying no to most of those and still asking for cuts, because I think everybody knows we're in a structural deficit. A structural deficit that's been caused by overspending. Our revenues are fine. We've increased our revenues this year by over $1 billion in our general fund operating. We're not in a recession. But for the last 4 to 6 years, programs that were funded with one-time funding, we turned them into ongoing general fund and funded them that way. That's how we got here. I mean, I'm thankful that at least one of the amendments that I presented yesterday passed, and it was the one where, again, a FTE that was funded for a specific job, get a report done by December of 2024, one-time funding. The request in the budget at the time was to go ahead and fund that ongoing, keep it going. It's a microcosm of how we got here. When we have, over the last 6 years, 11.3 adjusted for inflation, general fund revenues, appropriations, that's what the percentage is over the last 6 years. When we have departments who are at 20, 30, 40% growth in their general fund appropriation, that's how we got here. We can't keep increasing FTE in this state by over 7,000 employees in the last 6 years. And granted, about 3,500 of those are in higher education, but they're still state employees. In the executive branch, it's about 600 a year. We just can't keep doing that. We can't keep adding new programs. Even after we all know about the billion-dollar budget deficit that we're in, we still have bills that are coming through with new ongoing general fund obligations. We can't afford them. We literally need to cut. As I explained yesterday when we were in the Joint Budget Committee, you know, it's really enticing to say, well, you know, we need to spend this money because we'll pull down general funds. And I compared that to when my daughters were younger, when they wanted to go buy clothes, and I'd be like, no, we really can't afford to buy clothes. And they're like, yeah, but Mom, we can get it on sale. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you get it on sale. We still can't afford to buy new clothes. That's the comparison. We're in a situation where we have a crisis of priorities. If you make everything a priority, if you want to fund everything, you have no priority. We need to determine what our priorities are, those core functions of government that we should fund, those functions like education that we are mandated to fund and increase by inflation. Those are things that we have to have. So we're asking everybody to make a cut. So it's very disheartening and disappointing to me when I asked to cut the legislative branch department's budget by $3.5 million, when for the last 5 years, on average, we haven't been spending all of our appropriation to the tune of $5 million. It's not going to cause any kind of sacrifice to cut our budget by approximately 4%. Not going to cause any sacrifice at all. It's not like people are going to get laid off. We haven't been spending of our appropriation $5 million for the last 5 years, each of every last 5 years, approximately on average. So saying to cut 4%, 3.5 million, and the reason I'm saying it's 4% is because we're increasing our budget by 1%, approximately, 0.9. That is not a sacrifice. I think it's our moral obligation to look at where do we come up with cuts. I told you the difficulty, and we experience it every day at the Joint Budget Committee. Come on over anytime. We experience every day. We can't expand programs that we know we should be funding, but we can't expand them. We're lucky to keep them even with last year. That's causing difficulties. We're trying to figure out how we fund neglected and abused kids, how we're trying to figure out how to fund appropriately childcare for low-income families, children with disabilities. I mean, the list goes on.
We want to make sure we can fund education as required and mandated under the Constitution. The funding is mandated under the Constitution. So asking us to say, look, we didn't spend $5.5 million last year of our appropriation, can't we come up with a $3.5 million cut? Doesn't seem unreasonable to me. I mean, that seemed like something that should have been pretty easy for us to do. And then on top of it all, we're sitting on, right now, $22 million of unencumbered money in a cash fund that is truly general fund. Are the things in there more important than families and children? I don't think so. That's why I asked for the amendment. That's why I asked to say, let's take that $21.6 million and put it to those things that we not only have to fund, but that we should be funding, that we need to fund. So I don't think it's right that we're asking everybody else to make cuts, and we choose not to. And if I need to pull up the budget again and demonstrate on the budget summary how we are not decreasing from our 24-25 appropriation, I'd be more than happy to do that. But you're also welcome to look at page 7, where it's the summary. It's very clear what our appropriation was in 24-25 and what our requested appropriation is in 25-26. It's a little less than $700,000 increase. The FTE won't be increasing because you actually did agree to that amendment yesterday. But we're doing an increase, not a decrease in our budget when we know we don't need the funding. So with that, I'll be a no.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam President. So, a couple of things that I'd like to clear up. First, and most importantly, yes, this budget is awful. And we are making decisions across the street that are extremely painful. Whether those are cuts to human services, whether that is looking at education programs, whether that is taking away dollars from cash funds that have been allocated in previous years by this legislature that we can put to a higher and better use this year. We voted to cut $1 million from food banks and food pantries. Those are the kind of votes we're making. They're not easy on the heart. So yes, we are in an extraordinarily difficult position with the budget. But the important thing to note, Senator Kirkmeyer said this, the good senator from Weld said this, we don't have a revenue shortfall. I think that's really important because I hear a lot of folks in the media, a lot of folks that I talk to about this say, oh, yeah, we have this revenue shortfall. What are we going to do? We don't have a revenue shortfall. Our economy is booming. We do not have a revenue shortfall in the state of Colorado. We have a structural deficit. And that structural deficit is caused by the rationing equation in Tabor. We do not have a revenue shortfall. We have a structural deficit caused by the rationing equation in Tabor. I think it's a really important distinction because in corporations, when you're booming, you invest, you reinvest back into your company. And when the economy crashes, when you're in recession, you tighten your belt. Families do that, governments do that. We're in a situation where the economy is booming and we're tightening our belt. And we're tightening our belt because, as has been referred to by folks on both sides of the aisle, because of this self-imposed recession, because of the rationing equation in Tabor. That is what limits our budget this year. The limit on our budget is the rationing equation in Tabor. I just want that to be really, really clear. It is not a revenue shortfall. The reason we're making these hard decisions is because of the rationing equation in Tabor. Full stop. The last few years, we have spent federal funds in our budget, with the exception of maybe $10 to $20 million over at the Behavioral Health Administration that was dedicated to the creation of new ongoing costs. There was more of those dollars from ARPA went into BHA, but most of those dollars went to one-time programs, one-time spend, investments that did not cause ongoing obligations. So we did not, by and large, create new programs, obligate the state to new spending from the money that we got from the federal government. We did, however, use some of those dollars to pay for costs that were already in our budget that we couldn't afford because we have been in a Tabor rationing situation for a couple of years. We have hit that Tabor cap, and so in order to avoid some of the painful cuts we're making this year, we used some of those one-time federal dollars to pay for some of those ongoing costs, but they were not new costs. They were not new FTE. By and large, they were just continuing programs that existed before we experienced the downfall we did in COVID. So just to be clear about where we are and why we're making votes like cutting $1 million from food banks and food pantries. It is because we are in a Tabor refund situation, not because we don't have the revenue, not because we're in a recession. We are tightening our belts because of the rationing equation in Tabor. We can disagree about whether that's a good thing or not. We can absolutely do that. We can have that disagreement about whether we can and should be making these cuts, whether this is a good thing for the people of Colorado that we have this rationing cap. We can have that debate. But I just want to be clear about why we're in the situation we're in. Okay, groundwork laid. We have asked departments to make cuts. And when you look at the entire proposal from the legislative branch, and you include the refund that the transfer from the legislative department cash fund, there is actually a cut from prior year spending. So to the legislative branch, I want to say thanks for finding those cuts. Some of those cuts are really painful, and some of those cuts are so painful that I think many folks in this body won't want to make them. That includes some of the committees that have been eliminated through the Senate Bill 25-1099 suspend interim activities bill, which we haven't heard yet, I think in large part because there are some disagreements about what committees in that bill should continue and which shouldn't. But I do just want to say thank you to the executive committee for finding some places that they could cut. That is more than we have seen from some departments in the executive branch. Whether or not there's more that could be done, I think is up for debate, and we did have an extended debate about that. My personal take on the work that we do here in the legislature, you look at things like the lawyers that we hire to write our bills, and I'm sure all of you have been in the same situation I have been late in the session, where I desperately need an amendment, and you know what? OLLS is just backed up. So there are certain places here I think that could actually use more investment. Not this year, but that could use more investment. By and large, I think we can look at the legislative proposal, and especially looking at page 3, net impact on the general fund budget by agency. If you look at the total impact on the 25-26 general fund budget balancing, when you include the transfer from the legislative department cash fund, it is a 7.9% cut from the prior year. So, thank you. I ask for an aye vote on the legislative budget.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, we're overspending. And we can look at all the pages in this book, but I misspoke when I said page 7. It's actually page 9. And it's the budget 25-26 budget request summary. And you can look at the general fund monies, and it's not hard to look at the 24-25 appropriation of general fund monies and compare it to the bottom line where it says total fiscal year 25-26 requests of general fund monies. And I think we can all see where it says change from prior year. So this is the budget request summary. It's where we summarize everything. So yes, there were some decreases. But when you're looking at the general fund requests on page 9, it shows a 0.9% increase in general fund appropriation. So I know everybody wants to try and blame it on Tabor. Well, not everybody, but a few people want to blame it on Tabor. And I've heard it more than once being said that Tabor is why we can't have nice things. And my response always is, Tabor is why the hardworking taxpayers in this state get to have nice things. Tabor has been in place for over 3 decades. Our voters have voted time and time and time and time again with regard to Tabor. Our most recent vote was just the no on HH. 60-40. 60% said, nope, we want our Tabor surplus, we want our Tabor check, we want it. You know, at the Joint Budget Committee, we talk about ballot measures and what they mean. And there are things that are passed that I don't like. Tabor's not one of them. But, you know, we have to go with the will of the voters. May not like it, but we have to go with the will of the voters. And I know you can all say you can use that in all sorts of other ballot measures, and I'm pretty sure that I have worked to go with the will of the voters. So yeah, we're not in a recession. We had over $1 billion of increased funds, revenues that came in this year. Our budget is a mess. It's a mess. We are in a structural deficit, and the Joint Budget Committee knew about this in March of 2021, after that forecast, where there was this little chart that was put out that showed how we were in a structural deficit then, and instead of curtailing our spending, we increased our spending. Folks, you cannot spend your way out of a structural deficit. You all got the memo from Craig Harper and Greg Sabinski that tells us we are on an unsustainable path. That includes in education. We can't think that the state education fund, which is derived from income tax, quite frankly, that we can keep up spending. Tabor's been in place for over 3 decades. Local governments have figured out how to deal with it. Local governments have had the ability to go de-Bruce, as we like to call it. At the state level, I think we've tried it, 4 times since 1992. I think it's 4, for sure 3, that I can remember. And voters have told us just recently, they like Tabor. They like to keep a clamp down on government. And from our side, Maybe we need to stop treating the earnings of hardworking taxpayers as the personal property of state government. It's not. Every dollar we spend and give to someone else has to first be taken from one of our hardworking taxpayers. Every dollar we spend. We're not a corporation. Profit is not supposed to be our bottom line. The provision of service is our bottom line. So every dollar we spend and we give to someone else, it's first taken from a hard-working taxpayer in Colorado. The taxes that are taken out of people's paycheck, the taxes on income, the sales tax that they pay, it's money that they need. It's not just extra play money. It's money they need. Money to provide for their family. Not just raise their children, but achieve greater opportunities for their children. It's money that they need to help attend to their parents or their grandparents or an elderly friend. The problem isn't that people are taxed too little. The problem is that government spends too much. We have overspent. We have created new offices. I don't think that just because you've created a new office and you put in your bill that it's from gifts, grants, and donations, that eventually that doesn't end up being general fund money. We have over 1,000 cash funds. Those funds are not all from fees that we place on people. So we put fees on people, on automobiles, on all sorts of things. Those are just another tax, essentially, that we're charging people that live in the state of Colorado. This isn't about Tabor. This is about we need to stop spending. We need to look at our own pocketbook. We need to sit around that kitchen table just like a family does, decide where we can spend our money and what our priorities are. Essentially, what we've done is we've maxed out the credit cards.
Senator Kirkmeyer, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining of your second 10-minute period.
Thank you, Madam President. The problem's not that people are taxed too much. The problem is we just don't like this accounting measure that we have to deal with called Tabor. We have to justify it. We should be justifying all of our expenditures. We don't just have a bunch of monopoly money laying around that we get to go fund new offices, expand programs. Every cent we use is from a hardworking taxpayer. It's not our money. So just remember that as we keep going through this discussion. Every dollar we spend and we give to someone else, every program we increase and it costs us more money, is money that we are taking from someone else to do that. And I know the good senator is going to get up here and argue with me over the budget. It doesn't matter. We didn't cut the budget for the legislative branch. We didn't cut it. We still have $22 million of unencumbered money sitting in a fund balance that we don't need to spend on $4 million worth of furniture, or $2 million, or $3 million worth of furniture. We want to spend money on things that are necessary for the legislative branch, budget for it, plan for it, and spend accordingly, just like families have to, just like families, just like hardworking taxpayers. Still urge a no vote.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, finally, we have agreement. It is Tabor. It is the rationing cap in Tabor that is causing us to cut. Yes, it is the rationing cap in Tabor that we are up against. It is not a lack of revenue. It's not a revenue shortfall. I'm happy that that has been established and we can all agree that the limit that we are up against in the budget this year is the one created by the rationing equation in Tabor, not a revenue shortfall. Good. Let's talk about the will of the voters. The last time we were in this situation, the last time that we had faced the kind of cuts that we have to make this year because we have hit that Tabor cap limit, the last time we were here, a Republican governor, Bill Owens, led the charge to pass Referendum C and create a timeout and bring the budget back down from where that rationing cap sets us. So we haven't been in this position since then. We haven't had to cut because of the rationing equation in Tabor since Bill Owens. So the last time we did, the voters said, yeah, let's address this. And a Republican governor was the one who asked them. History. Now let's talk about the legislative budget, because the most important piece of this is page 2 and page 3 of this book. And I know that this book looks like something that the Budget Committee creates. Just to be clear, the Executive Committee creates the budget for the legislative branch. The Joint Budget Committee has not reviewed any of these questions, any of these proposals. Nothing in here has been seen by the Budget Committee any earlier than it was seen by all of you. So this is from the Executive Committee, not the Budget Committee. I'm not defending the work of the Joint Budget Committee. I'm pointing out what the analysis of the legislative budget says, and what it says on page 2, in bold print at the top, is the net impact on the general fund, which includes a recommended $4.3 million transfer from the Legislative Department cash fund to the general fund, is $74 million, which is down by $6.4 million, or 7.9% from FY 24-25. So when you include the orbitals, right? We have a budget, we run bills that make transfers, that cut programs, that cut funds. We look at the entire budget package. That's what comes to you in the JBC version of this document, the entire budget package. When we look at the entire budget proposal from the legislative branch, from the Executive Committee, it is a $6.4 million, or 7.9% cut from FY 24-25. That's what I'm talking about. When I say thanks to the Executive Committee for finding those cuts, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the whole package. So again, we are in the situation because of the rationing equation in Tabor, which is inflation plus population, and we know that a third of our budget is Medicaid, and medical inflation is way higher than your average price of dishwashers and washing machines. So we know already a third of our budget grows much faster than that rationing equation in Tabor. K-12, 90% is wages, and we're required to grow K-12 by a certain percentage. Wage growth goes up faster than dishwashers and washing machines, inflation. The cost of concrete and materials we use to build roads and bridges goes up faster than inflation. So what we have is a structural deficit. That's the structural deficit. The difference between the cost of what we invest in and the rationing cap in Tabor, that is the structural deficit year over year. That is why we're in the situation we're in. That's why we have to make hard, difficult, terrible decisions across the street on the Budget Committee. And that is why I'm grateful that the legislative budget includes in total a $6.4 million, 7.9% decrease from 24-25.
Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam President. And first of all, I just want to apologize to the members for opening this can of worms. I meant to talk about Senate Bill 188, I believe we're supposed to be talking about. And so I kind of want to get us back to that and get us on track to 188. I'm going to make some comments about some of the things that we've heard. But let's get back and talk about what I talked about in the first place was what I heard from the good senator from Greenwood Village. This is the Executive Council. And talking about where we're spending our money and what's left over. I'm trying to highlight that we have a budget deficit that you all know and heard of many, many times. I'm trying to highlight where we can find some of that money to address it just for this next fiscal year. We do have a structural deficit. We do have excess revenue that we are above a cap. But we have expenditures. Maybe we are overspending in some areas. But we also have needs. And the needs of our citizens are through Medicaid and education as the two biggest expenditures we have in our budget. And are we going to go back and tell these citizens who are in this need, this urgent need, hey, we're going to cut your programs because we couldn't find $11 million out of the legislative budget? You see, we're having a discussion at sidetrack to Tabor. I think another time and another place we'll have that debate and talk about. But we have expenditures that were added by the will of the people this last fall in $350 million. It's basically an unfunded mandate because they didn't tell us where to get the money from. We did 2 adequacy studies for education, 2 different models, 2 different formulas. And this is where every single one of you should be listening, because every single one of you represents schools and has a school district. And those adequacy studies have pretty much agreed that we are $4 billion with a B short every year in adequately funding our K through 12 schools. That's called budgeting to a number and not to a need, is what I call Tabor. Those things I just mentioned are the needs. I don't know how we're going to cut to get those needs. We got $1 billion just in basic cuts we need to make. So the long-term discussion is how do we address funding to the need and not to a number, and addressing that. And I want to go back to Senate Bill 188 and continue to state that $11 million is left after the executive committee's need for the legislative services. And that's our first step, and that's where we need to focus on and look going forward every other place in this state. Thank you.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Comes now Senate Bill 188, the Legislative Department Budget and Legislative Appropriations Bill. My comments on this bill that I have uncomfortably voted no on twice already as a member of the Executive Committee and on second readings, and I will be voting no on a third time. It has led us to an interesting place where we have fundamental agreement on some critically important premises. We don't have a revenue shortfall, acknowledged and reinforced by both sides of the aisle. We do have a structural deficit, acknowledged and reinforced by those on both sides of the aisle. So the question becomes, well, how and why and what do we do about it? Well, we've experienced this before. A place near and dear to my heart, the previous speaker spoke to this as well. When we ran into challenging economic circumstances, different than where we are now, and had therefore a deficit, we changed our structure. We created this unique thing called the negative factor, the budget stabilization factor, the negative factor, the budget stabilization factor. That's how we dealt with it. And we created a method of getting around the structural deficit. Now, you heard a phrase offered that was intended to have a resonance. I have a phrase that I think has more resonance. the taxpayer protection effect of Tabor. The taxpayer protection effect of Tabor says Colorado grows. We need to be attentive to that and allow for government to grow along with it. The taxpayer protection effect of Tabor also says, well, inflation happens. Concrete gets more expensive, although roads and bridges are largely funded outside of our budget. But the elements of the economy are accounted for meaningfully in the taxpayer protection effect of Tabor. They allow for population growth plus inflation. So the how and why, how do we deal with this, comes Senate Bill 188. It gives us a really good example. It's very instructive. It's a microcosm of the bigger budget problem we have. And here's the thing. We have direct and meaningful effect and control over this budget as legislators. If you flip to page 7 in the book, you see the cash reserves. A lot of conversation over the last couple of days about cash reserves. Well, we're not the only place in state government where there are cash reserves. There's estimated to be, and we're still trying to pin down the exact number, 1,000 additional cash reserve accounts across the many elements of state government. Ours is fairly robust in this particular recitation, recitation, kind of tripped over my word, of that circumstance. We start with 25 million. We make a couple of changes. We end up with 22 as a mid-level number, 21 a following mid-level number. Take some additional adjustments to get at everything. Quite frankly, we're kind of a contractor that I worked with, used a phrase on me frequently. He said, Lundeen, you're picking the fly specks. He used a different word. You're picking the fly specks out of the pepper. The reality is we fought over this cash reserve when, at the end of the day, even if we had run several of the amendments that we ran, we still would have money reverting back into from the general fund into the budget, allowing for more dollars than the reserve. But as proposed, we're going to have $11 million in reserve in our budget should this bill pass as it is. So that's microcosm, example number one of how we can deal with this. We need to look at the cash funds very, very carefully, figure out how much is there, and quite frankly, we need to change our method of managing those cash funds. They're continuously, many times, appropriated. They just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. We need to say, you know who's responsible for the budget of the state of Colorado? It's the General Assembly. And they have a really capable, bright, insightful committee called the Joint Budget Committee that works almost year-round to see where we're at. And the General Assembly says, Department A, you get these dollars, spend them to do the programs we have authorized, and there will be nothing more coming your way. No more of this, here's a pile of cash, spend what you want and keep what you want. That needs to go away. That's example number one of how we can learn from Senate Bill 88 on the bigger question. The next element where we can learn in this bill and apply it more broadly to the budget is actually, and I really want to be clear about this, I'm a business guy for most of my life. I was a journalist and a business guy most of my life. There were times when in business things got challenging, they got tough, where I had to go sit down with my banker and figure out what life was going to look like, whether this enterprise was going to survive or not, whether the banker believed we had a handle on our finances. And you know what we always got down to the brass tacks of? Source and application of new funds. Cash on cash, year over year. You know how we do that in this particular operation? It's called the general fund. It's how much money would come in through the taxes and the various revenues that the state government collects and how we spend them. Page 9 in your explanation of our budget, our item for Senate Bill 188, the cash on cash, year over year, general fund money says, we, in this time of incredible challenge where we're asking everybody to take a haircut, we're growing our hair by 1%. We should be leading by example. And our cash on cash, year over year, should be a bona fide, straightforward, straight-faced, we're taking a cut. And it's uncomfortable, because you know what? Those incredibly brilliant lawyers that work for us, we're going to have to cut one. And we're still going to have to figure out how to do it. You know those outrageously brilliant economists who work for us? We may have to cut two. And we're going to have to figure out how to do it. Because that's what we're asking everybody else in the budget to do, so we should be doing that. Learning lesson number 2 in this bill on behalf of the broader challenge we have.
Senator Lundin, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining of your 10-minute period.
Madam President, I cannot finish in 30 seconds. I'd better lop over.
Okay, you'll take your second 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Lesson number 3, and this is where there's a ray of sunshine, a ray of hope. We accepted an amendment yesterday that said that one-time money that led to hiring somebody who probably shouldn't have hired with one-time money, but we did it anyway. I'm telling you, I do not know, but the back of the napkin, the anecdotal information I can get is we have done that dozens and dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times, across state government, and those people who got hired with one-time money, directly or indirectly, probably are going to have to find different employment. And that's what we're going to need to ask if we don't want to take money out of Medicaid, the poorest among us, the people who are struggling, our neighbors who we have known for decades, who need our help. That it's that hand up moment where we need to make sure that we're supporting that. If we don't make tough cuts somewhere else, we're going to have to make tough cuts in the face of those people who really, truly need our support. So my ask is, we should lead by example. And I've led by example in a very uncomfortable way twice already. I'll do it again today, saying, we got the budget coming, we're still not there, we got to keep working on this. It is argued routinely by our colleagues from that august and hardworking committee, the Joint Budget Committee, the budget is a moral document, you will hear. Well, I think you can make that argument. I think that's a fair case to make. We need to preserve our moral authority as the legislators, the board of directors over the government of Colorado, and say, you know what, we're taking the first cut. We're taking it here. It's always about trade-offs and priorities. I think we need to give of ourselves before we ask others to give of themselves. It's a tough vote, but clearly it is a resolved vote. I am resolute and will be a no vote on Senate Bill 188 and encourage you to consider the same position. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I want to talk about Tabor. No, I'm just joking. I want to renew the motion for 188. Please vote yes.
All right, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 188. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Pelton B, Kirkmeyer, Simpson, Mullica, Frizzell, Carson, Roberts, Kolker, Bright, Peltonar, Catlin, Liston, Baisley, Rich, Marchman. With a vote of 18 aye, 16 no, 0 absent, and 0 excused, 1 vacant, SB 188 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Yep.
Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of House Bill 1063.
House Bill 1063 by Representative Hartsook and Brown and Senator Michelson-Jeannet concerning the lawful use of crystalline polymorph psilocybin that is approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration.
Senator Michelson-Jeannet.
I move House Bill 1063 on third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1063. Are there any no votes? Senators Amabile, Pelton B., Frizzell, Catlin, Pelton R., Liston, Baisley. Witt, please add the minority leader as a no vote. No, we're on no's. Please mark the minority leader as an aye vote. Come on, brother. No votes on 1063. Senator Bright, Senator Mullica, Kirkmeyer. Please mark Senator Baisley as an aye vote. What is going on today? Senator Frizzell, please mark Senator Frizzell as a no vote. With a vote of 25 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, House Bill 1063 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Henriksen, Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 83.
Senate Bill 83 by Senators Doherty and Frizzell and Representative Brown and Garcia-Sander concerning limitations on restrictive employment agreements.
Senator Doherty.
I move Senate Bill 83 on third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 83 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Pelton B., Mr. Minority Leader Bright, Pelton R., Baisley. With a vote of 29 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, Senate Bill 83 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Bridges, Weissman, Judah, Kipp, Winter, Snyder, Cutter, please add the president. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title to House Bill 1025.
House Bill 1025 by Representative Ferre and Senators Cutter concerning the state stockpile of essential materials and in connection therewith broadening the circumstances in which distributions from the stockpile are allowed.
Senator Cutter.
I move House Bill 1025 on third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1025. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Simpson, Frizzell, Baisley, Rich, Liston, Pelton R., Catlin, Carson, Bright, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B. With a vote of 22 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, House Bill 1025 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Sullivan, Winter, Ball, Bridges, Kipp, Mr. 'Mr. 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 '
Senate Bill 81 by Senators Bridges and Amabile and Representative Byrd and Sirota concerning public financing and connection therewith, establishing the building urgent infrastructure and leveraging dollars authority, modifying the state public financing cash fund, and allowing the state treasurer to use a security token offering for state capital financing.
Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 81 for final passage.
Any
Third reading and
discussion?
Final passage.
Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 81. Are there any slowly raised hands? No votes. Senator Simpson. Mr. Minority Leader. Frizzell. Catlin. Baisley. Rich. Liston. Pelton R. Carson. Bright. Kirkmeyer. Pelton B. With a vote of 22 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, Senate Bill 81 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Coker, Roberts, Ball, Mr. Schaffler, please read the title to Senate Bill 147.
Senate Bill 147 by Senators Pelton B. and Colker and Representatives Garcia, Sander, and Lukens concerning modifications to the management of the Public Employees Retirement Association by the Board of Trustees, and in connection therewith defining the board as a local public body for purposes of the Open Meetings Law, establishing term limits for members of the board, clarifying that the board must conduct its meetings according to the Open Meetings Law as a local public body, requiring the board to post certain meeting-related and financial information of the association on the association's website, and clarifying the authority of the board to manage and administer the association.
That is not at all a specific title. Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 25-147 for third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 147. Are there any no votes? Not one? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, 1 vacant, Senate Bill 147 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Kipp, Mr. Schaffler. Oh, please add Senator Marchman as a co-sponsor to 147. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title to House Bill 1091.
House Bill 1091 by Representative Phillips and Senator Mullica concerning the designation of the Agaricus julius mushroom as the state mushroom.
Lots of people lined up to talk about this bill. Senator Mullica.
A little nervous right now, Mr. President. I move for the passage of House Bill 1091 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, there is discussion from all of you. All right, Senator Bridges.
Actually, here, you run the show. Ask permission to run a third reading amendment.
Mr. President, permission to run a third reading amendment.
Will you explain the need for a third reading amendment, Senator Bridges?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we believe that there's a real important piece of this bill that was missing, that we want to make sure is included for posterity, and mostly so that all of the teachers teaching this above a certain age laugh when they do.
Okay, that's the reason for needing a third reading amendment. The question for the body is Senator Bridges' request for permission to offer a third reading amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. I only heard one no vote. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaffler, please read L001 to 1091.
Amendment L001, amend revised bill, page 2, line 27, strike mushroom and insert mushroom formerly known as Prince.
Senator, anyone who wants to speak to the amendment. Senator Ball.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life, and also to add language that is important as we designate our first state mushroom to commemorate that this mushroom is the mushroom formerly known as Prince. I encourage you to make an aye vote.
Any discussion, Mr. Minority Leader?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think that there's an intervening name that should be considered perhaps as part of this. The reality is there's an unpronounceable symbol that went between Agaricus Julius to the unpronounceable syllable or symbol to Prince. So the amendment would be better if it acknowledged that, in fact, there is yet a third name that is potential in this conversation.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, Senator Ball and I actually agree, and we did try, with our best efforts, to convince OLLS of the importance of including a graphic in law. I think the exchange included a questioning of our motives, which is fair. However, do you have the exchange pulled up? I think this is good for posterity to note. We tried, Mr. Minority Leader, and were denied. Raise your hand. Yes.
Senator Ball.
I would like to read an excerpt from our attempt to get the symbol added into this bill. OLS asked if this was a joke, and the response was like, yes, it's a joke, but they are also serious about it and want it to happen. So we have done our best to try, but we cannot include the symbol in the bill.
Senator Bridges.
We tried to give them diamonds and pearls, but all they could offer is their love.
Any further discussion on this amendment? You would like to speak to this as the sponsor of the bill? Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the sponsor of the bill, I definitely appreciate where my fellow senators are coming from with this. And just want to say that, you know, I've lobbied this bill with members in this chamber, and I know there's some members who are on the fence, maybe from Sterling, and really want to let you know that if this gets you to a yes, if this amendment can get you to a yes, and I will say that my wife believes I'm a good senator, and so I am willing to do whatever I have to do to get this bill passed, and I will not live this down, what I'm about to do. I'm really nervous, but purple rain, purple rain.
It's very good.
I will be in favor of this amendment and ask for a yes vote.
Any further? Oh, yes. There is further discussion. Senator Gonzalez.
Is there no decorum, Mr. President, in this chamber? Can we not, if that's not worthy of a gavel, Mr. President, what are we doing here? I'm just saying.
We're partying like it's 1999.
I would know nothing about that.
Any further discussion on this amendment? Members, before we vote, I just have to ask, how can you just leave me standing, alone in a world that's so cold? Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe you're just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other in this chamber? This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Very good. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of L001 to House Bill 1091. Are there any no votes? Senator Baisley is a no vote on L001. Seeing no further discussion, the vote is, I can't even talk right. 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant. L001 to 1091 is adopted. Very good. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1091. Are there any no votes? There are no votes after that. Senators, Mr. Minority Leader, Pelton B., Frizzell, Baisley, With a vote of 30 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, House Bill 1091 as amended is passed. Co-sponsors. No co-sponsors. General orders. Second reading of bills. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Roberts will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed for everyone in the chamber. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 199?
Senate Bill 199 by Senators Lundin and Rodriguez and Representatives McCluskey and Puglisi concerning suspending legislative interim activities.
Mr. Minority Leader.
I move the appropriations report to Senate. I move Senate Bill 199 and the appropriations report to Senate Bill 199.
To the committee report. Senator Rodriguez, Mr. Majority
Thank you,
Leader.
Mr. Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, which was the committee of reference, we had a discussion about the bill, and we appropriated the savings that the Ledge Council had recommended that we had discussed earlier in the day.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report, Senator? No? Okay. Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Mr. Majority Leader.
Go ahead.
Thank you, colleagues. Senate Bill 199 was a discussion similar to what we had in 188. The executive committee was charged with trying to find some savings, look back to some stuff we've done in the past similar to COVID, and what we did was a one-year pause on almost all of the statutory interim committees. We did keep one meeting for the Youth Advisory Council to have their final meeting, and also the TLRC, which does a lot of stuff with federal funding and other stuff that kept going. So, but we did pause all committees for 1 year to create about $347,000 in savings. So, 347, 357. 357.8. So, on that note, we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Senator Winter.
Thank you, members of the Executive Committee, for doing this hard work and making these hard decisions. However, I'm very disappointed about the only giving COYAC $5,000 to finish out the year. That's the Colorado Youth Advisory Council, which was started by a Republican Senator, Ellen Roberts. It's actually called the Hugh McKean Youth Advisory Council, and they have many bipartisan bills and some partisan bills, just as we do in this chamber. The experience that they have and the input we get on the legislation is invaluable. There's not a whole lot of opportunities for young people to have the influence that the folks on COYAC have. Let me read some of their quotes that they have given us. I had a pretty hard time in high school. I had some issues with bullying. I didn't always feel like I had a safe environment at school, but I always knew I could come to COYAC, said Amy Resnick, a 22-year-old college senior and COYAC alum. It gave me a much more clear vision of what I wanted out of my career. It helped me push forward in my life in a very positive way. Another student said, it taught me more about the inner workings of our government more than any class. It gave me the chance to see how lawmakers put policies into action more than any newspaper or commercial advertisement. And most of all, it taught me the importance of political advocacy and underrepresented individuals in our government. The youth are the leaders of tomorrow, and as often as leaders of municipalities like to brush them off, cultivating their leadership is of the utmost importance. This came from a student that really helped shape advocacy and policy for the disability community. And she said, COIAC has given us the skills to advocate for changes and understanding of the nuances of politics instilled in the value of open dialogue. COIAC teaches us how to work with people of different backgrounds and views, persevere in the face of roadblocks, turn passion into tangible impacts, ask for the help and advice because nobody can do this alone, grow our leadership skills, and develop lifelong connections. Members, we have parents and alumni of COIAC that have been reaching out. We have current COIAC members, and this is merely what I'll move the amendment in a moment. I'm going to move an amendment to restore the COIAC funding for $50,000. Okay.
Whenever you want, Senator Winter.
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L005.
All right, well, there is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read the title of L005? Or read L005.
Amendment L005, amend printed bill, strike pages 3 through 5, page 6 of the bill, strike lines 1 through 20, renumber succeeding sections accordingly, amend the Appropriations Committee report dated March 7, 2025.
Senator Winter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Winter.
I move L005.
All right, it has been properly moved to the amendment. Senator Winter.
I understand that we're cutting interim committees, and a couple of those, I believe, are more painful than not, and this is one of them, because this is bringing different voices to the table. I will say another amendment is coming from the good senator from Boulder that I also support, whereas one of the committees that was kept doesn't actually bring diverse voices to the table. And I would entertain being able to readjust that funding in order to bring diverse voices to the table, make sure our youth have input, make sure we are benefiting what they're doing. And to reiterate, much of their policies have been bipartisan. It's been about mental health issues. It's been about education. It's been about water. They have done and made a huge impact on the state, and to shut their voices out, to tell young people right now at this moment in history that we don't have $50,000 to bring you to the table would be a mistake.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I rise in strong support of L005. I've had the opportunity in my time in the Senate of getting to work with this amazing group of young people. I've gotten to serve as the chair of the committee over the past year, and it's been wonderful. These students represent all of our Senate districts. There are 5 others. As I've traveled around and talked to different states, their youth advisory commission looks a little different than ours. Sometimes they have Senate and House, and they run bills and that kind of thing. Since we can't afford that, what we do is offer them an opportunity to work all on their own, come up with ideas during the interim, and then bring forth up to 3 bills. This year, they brought forth 3 policies. One of them was rejected in the Ledge Council, and 2 of them are making their way through the legislature. I will be running one today with my good colleague from Grand Junction as well. So the bills that they bring forth are, as my colleague said, very important to them, but I think it's a critical time for us to not lose the momentum of this group. If they were to dissolve, if even for a time, it would be hard to put back all of the work that has gone on since the beginning of this commission. So with that, I would ask for your support on L005.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One more quick comment. Has been stated in the media that these young people get paid. They do not get paid for this service. They get reimbursed for mileage and food, just like each and every one of us does every day on our per diem. And so they are not paid. And because this is a hard year, they are absolutely willing to operate outside of an interim committee, not have official meetings, meet with legislators in an unofficial capacity, and not have an official 3 bills.
Further discussion on the amendment, Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to rise in opposition to this. This year is a tough year for us, and I realize that decisions have got to be made. And there's so often we're like, we understand, but don't cut us. We can't just keep doing that because we are well into over half of this session, and we need to be responsible. I think putting a pause on the COIAC committee will not I don't think it's going to damage anyone. And I would urge a no vote on this amendment. We've got to start saying no on some of these costs.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this amendment, and for several reasons. I'm constantly reached out to by students and journalists who work for school newspapers, college newspapers, always asking for information and wanting to get further understanding about how things work down here. I know there's something going on at George Washington High School that isn't in my district, but they reach out to me and want me to come to speak to a class, but it's during session time, and then when I'm finished with session, I can't make it, so might try to work out something later on. I've just spent the last several mornings before coming over here putting together my newsletter that I'm going to send out this week, and the one I'm sending out this week is pertaining to kind of a refresher of Civics 101. I know I'm not alone on this, but I can't tell you the amount of emails and phone calls I've gotten from constituents and voters across the state telling me who I should and should not vote for in cabinet nominations, okay? I can't tell you the number of people that asked me if I could get them in to the State of the Union address this year, or if they could be my guest this year at the State of the Union address. I get phone calls from people wondering when the street is going to be plowed. I get phone calls asking about the barking dog and the stop sign that they really need taken care of at their street corner. I have to explain to them how government works, the different levels of government, who works where, who has the ability to do something and who doesn't. I don't have any tickets to the State of the Union address. I can't make a dog stop barking, okay? But these kids who are working on these kinds of things is so important for us moving forward. Number one, at least they'll have the knowledge of this, and you know what? When they're sitting around the house, maybe having these budget discussions with their parents, maybe just having dinner or watching a show that night, they can explain to them how this government works and who has the ability to make a law here in the state of Colorado and who doesn't. Plus, I am forever hopeful that these individuals who are in these kinds of things might actually come up with some of the answers that we can't seem to work out. Someone in this COIAC class might be the one who can figure out this Tabor problem and our school financing problem. I forever pray that someone can help us figure out this public health crisis that is gun violence. Maybe there's someone in one of these classes that I need to keep working their way through this to get themselves here or get to some higher office so that we can actually get some closure to these kinds of things. For reasons like that, there isn't enough money that we should be able to be spending on our kids to get them educated into the workings that go on down here, and I will be a yes on this amendment.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whenever questions like this come up, I like to give a shout out and a thank you to former Senator Ron Tupa, who allowed me when I was in middle school to come and shadow him for a day here in the legislature. I spent that day, the first half of the day, I shadowed someone who was a programmer at Quark. Appreciate that he gave me the opportunity to see how unbelievably boring his job is and how much I would definitely not like to have that job. And to thank you to Senator Tupa, who really gave me my first taste of what elected office might be like. And so if you think I am a positive addition to this chamber, perhaps vote yes on this amendment. Otherwise, please don't hold this against Senator Tupa.
Further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to Amendment 5. Many of the arguments you've heard are compelling. Civics education is critically important. Measures a little bit uncomfortable. It's a super nice to have, but it's not a need to have. I'd rather have the money in public education and urge your opposition to Amendment L005.
Save money, and this was the option. Some of the things we have to do with these committees is obviously it's staff time, the amount of bill drafts, which are hard to do. We have to pay, legislators have to get paid, they have to get paid to drive. We're trying to find nickels and dimes as much as we could, and this was one of the things that we as the legislative committee thought we could do as a temporary pause for a year. Nothing in this bill kills a committee. It's just a pause this year. We did it during COVID. COIAC is still around. So on that, I humbly ask for a no vote.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand we have to make incredibly difficult decisions this year. Yesterday, we did cut $1 million out of an important budget. I believe in the interim committee budgets that there is another interim committee that survived, and that's Transportation Legislative Review Committee. I think that committee should take a haircut because that committee doesn't actually have that much input as the next amendment coming or as the youth do into our policies. This is a very, very unique committee that brings voices that are extremely underrepresented in government, and it makes a difference not just in our legislation. I believe that democracy is the best when we have diverse voices at the table. That means when we have women, we have rural folks, and we have people of color, we have LGBTQ folks. And you know who can't serve in this room? Young people. They can't be in this room bringing their perspectives to the table. This is the way that they can. We have a better democracy for this, and the youth that have participated in this go on and they go to college. We have graduates that have gone to Brown and Yale and Stanford. We had one alumni email us about how he actually runs a consulting firm that is doing very well, that does a lot of consulting on engineering for the state now. And he attributes that he was actually able to do that success because of his experience on COIAC. So I would say the experience at COIAC isn't just in 1 year's legislation. It is in a lifetime of the youth we're working with, and it impacts the lives of all Coloradans. And young people aren't in this room. That's a piece of diversity we don't have. This is the only way that they have their thumbprints on actual legislation in a tangible way that gives them power. And yes, they can come down here and they can lobby us, but power dynamics matter, and being on a committee is important. And I encourage a yes vote on this. And I think there's other places, as I said, there was that committee that survived that's very expensive that I think could take a 1-year pause.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I renew my opposition to Amendment L005. You don't need drafting authority, which COYAC has, for 3 bills in order to understand civics. I urge your opposition to L005.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And they're willing to give up their drafting authority.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion division has been requested. The motion before the body is the passage of L005. We will be in a senatorial 5. All right, we are back. A division has been requested. He just told. Okay. We are back. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor, please stand. Thank you. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. The chair is not in doubt. L005 is lost. Any further discussion on the bill? Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L004.
One second.
Sorry.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L004?
Amendment L004, amend printed bill, page 9, strikes lines 15 through 27, page 10, strike
Senator
lines.
Amabile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment puts back the treatment of persons with behavioral health disorders in the criminal and juvenile justice system interim committee. This committee deals with the intersection of mental illness and criminal justice for both adults and kids. Every single year, this committee has brought forward a bill about competency. The competency restoration and the competency backlog costs our state, the fines alone, cost our state $12 million a year. And through the work of this committee, we have reduced that backlog significantly, but we still have a lot of more work to do. And we do other things, and we work on other legislation, and the goal of all of it is to disentangle mental illness from criminal justice, because people who are sick need treatment. They don't need to be in jail. And that is the overarching role of this committee. And just to put a little bit of a personal lean on it, I think you all know that I have a son who has schizoaffective disorder, which is, if you're lucky enough not to know what that is, it is schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And he has been homeless, and he has been criminal justice involved. And the work that we are doing on this committee with our 31-member task force that are all professionals that come at this from all different angles is helping. It is working. And these people who are on the task force do not get paid. They do this because their work involves this issue. So we have police, we have DAs, we have mental health professionals, we have disability advocates, all of these people. And I do not want the work to stop. They have work throughout the year. They meet once a month, and they come up with policy ideas. And, you know, there's been this weird talk about, oh, legislators just want more bills. Well, I can promise you, I would really like to have less bills. I would like us to solve this problem so that we don't need any more bills at all. That we have people who are mentally ill, who are getting the care they need and are not clogging up our criminal justice system and are not ending up in jail. That is what we need, and that is what this committee is working on. It is very important that we continue this work. And I implore you to vote yes on this amendment.
Senator Mobley, if you mind, can you please move the amendment? After the clerk reads it.
I'm sorry. Okay, I move Amendment 4 to Senate Bill 199.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I rise in support of this amendment. Why this specifically? When we are facing a deep budget shortfall and when we are facing incredible challenges in the weeks to come related to the long bill. The answer for me is pretty clear. Because we have failed to act, we are facing a $12 million fine annually related to our ongoing competency crisis here in the state of Colorado. This task force and its associated committee over the interim is actively working on the policy changes that will lead to the end of having to pay $12 million a year and also protect the rights of the individuals with behavioral health issues and the facilities that detain and hold them. Y'all, we did not get into this competency crisis overnight, and no one bill is going to solve it. And that's why, for me, this, in an incredibly difficult budget year, moving forward and continuing the work on behalf of a committee that will tackle this competency crisis is deeply important. I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much. I rise in opposition to the amendment. Colleagues, the task force will move forward. The task force will not be stopped. Nothing in 199 impedes that in any way. Largely, the individuals who participate on the task force are state employees who will not, unless we shake our head and come to a clearer line of sight and actually make some cuts in our budget, we'll still have full funding with full benefits, fully paid by the state, the increase in benefits. But I veer off onto a different argument at this point. The task force will continue. This simply says the committee should pause. You all know what happens when we pause? When I pause, my brain catches up with my mouth and I say smarter things. I think that is very likely a possibility or a possible outcome of this, where we take the pause. We've got a budget problem. Let's acknowledge that. Let's let the task force continue to roll forward. The state employees who will participate will continue in the task force. Let's see what kind of an outcome we get from that when the committee reconvenes in 1 year. I urge your opposition to the amendment.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you. I just want to respond because if that were in fact the case, I would appreciate and understand that perspective, except that not all of the members of the task force are actually state employees. And I don't know if you've ever tried to schedule a meeting with 30 different stakeholders on the same date and the same time and the same place. It is incredibly challenging, incredibly challenging. So then what ends up happening is that if you don't have the weight and respect of both the interim and the task force working together, folks say, well, I got 17 other things to do, catch me up later, and then when it comes next January, we're going to be here and trying to muddle our ways through policies that are terribly important, and not all of the stakeholders will have had the opportunity to weigh in with time and care.
So I hear you when you say, let's pause. But also, think about the time and momentum that we lost in waiting to convene this committee in the first place, to the tune of $12 million a year for the past several years. I reiterate my support for this amendment.
Senator Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, members, crises force interesting conversations, and we're in a tough budget time, and I don't personally mind that we have opened up this conversation about what interim committees, either of a letter or statutory nature, we should keep going on. Frankly, I'd like to have a bigger conversation even than the confines of this bill allow. But given that we are talking to one narrow question at a time, and the question is the amendment before us, I am here to say that I support the amendment because I support the work of the Behavioral Health Disorders in the Criminal Justice System Committee and Task Force, or BHD-CJS, I think if we shorten it. Members, this is my first year in the Senate, but it's my 9th year in this legislature, which is to say I've served on a few interim committees by now, and I've certainly seen a whole lot of interim committee bills come before me in the course of serving on a lot of different committees in this chamber, this half of our legislature and the other half. And I have observed that the work brought forth by this particular interim committee, supported by its task force, are some of the most thoughtful, some of the most intricate, I think some of the most carefully negotiated of everything that has come forth. As the senator from Boulder mentioned, we're dealing with tough subjects here. We're dealing with mental illness. We're dealing with how it intersects our criminal legal system. We're dealing with substance abuses. These issues generate costs to our state criminal legal system, to say nothing of the immense, awful human cost of what people with unmediated conditions are going through. And as has been alluded to, when we don't get a hold of these problems, other people take care of them for us. The state of Colorado is under a consent decree from federal district court in Colorado in litigation called DLC, because for years we failed to do right in what is called competency to proceed. I think members know about that. Among the other types of bills that this interim committee and its task force have brought forth are improvements to that system so that we can get out of the woods and come out from under this consent decree and stop paying millions of dollars in fines and stop grinding up human lives, you know, more importantly, if unquantifiably, next to all of that. So yes, we need to cast a critical eye on how the legislative department is spending money, and I am quite supportive of a lot of trimming back down in terms of the work that goes on, at least this coming interim, and I think we might even see more amendments about that. But to the narrow question for right now of is this particular interim committee worthy of continuing to keep going, I'm a yes, and I hope enough of us here are too. Thank you.
Senator Kipp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I don't get up and speak a whole lot because I don't think it's always necessary, but I think when we're talking about an issue like this, where we're talking about something that is a critical investment for our state. We do this all the time as a state. We say, hey, if we're going to get more money out of something, we should consider putting less money into it. So let's do that. Let us put a small amount of money in order to get a great return. I really think that you all should support this amendment.
Senator Amabile.
So thank you all for listening to this conversation. And, you know, I'll just wrap up by saying one of the families that I'm in touch with that's in a similar situation to me reached out to me yesterday. And their son was cycling in and out of hospital, jail, hospital, and now he's gone missing. The last time they saw him, he was naked in a stairwell. And they had him on a Ring camera, and now nobody knows where he is. And this is what we are trying to stop from happening. This churn, this completely broken system. This is what this committee is working on, and I would really appreciate your support.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the conversations. I think some of the statements that we had made that you spoke to, that you agreed with us, that could help us find some additional savings, which is what this is about. I'm inclined, we'll have another amendment coming, but I'm inclined to ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Mr. Minority Leader?
Thank you very much. I do not object at this point myself.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L004 is adopted. Mr. Minority Leader. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L010?
Amendment L010, amend printed bill, page 12, after line 12, insert section 15 in Colorado Revised Statutes 2-2.
Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 10 to Senate Bill 199.
To the amendment.
Yeah, we were talking earlier on the COYAC question. This is an amendment that would strike drafting privileges, that would allow everything that we spoke about essentially in terms of student engagement, the ability to participate with legislators, to convene after the pause. It would allow for all of that. However, it would strike their drafting privileges. They would not be able to draft bills as if they were legislators. And I think that this is we take the pause, the committee reconvenes, it leans in and has the civic education element that it has, but it does not have drafting authority in the pause and going forward.
Senatorial 5. Okay, we are back. Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I withdraw Amendment L101 to Senate Bill 199, and I think there might be magical paper like manna floating down from heaven.
L10 has been withdrawn, and there is a new amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L12?
Amendment L12, amend printed bill, strike pages 3
Minority
through 5.
Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move L12 to Senate Bill 199 and give a little bit of explanation, if you will.
Yes.
So this returns to the conversation we were having about the Colorado Youth Advisory Council. We were getting impassioned arguments that say, let's keep students engaged. Civics is important. And that is, in fact, something we all agree on. My argument was we should be spending the $45,000 that we were cutting in 199 and spend that in public education more broadly as opposed to focused on this one program. What we've done is we've come to an agreement saying that pause is too much. We're going to let COYAC continue to meet, but we're going to change the future of COYAC and how it interacts. Instead of acting as if they're a group of sub-legislators having drafting authority, we'll remove all drafting authority from COYAC in perpetuity going forward and allow them to continue to meet. The $45,000 that was cut from budget would be restored so that COYAC meets this year and going forward, but they no longer have the authority to draft bills as if they were legislators. That is the point and the effect of Amendment L012.
Senator Winter.
Thank you to the Minority Leader for bringing Amendment L012. I am in full support because having COYAC move forward, allowing them to get the benefits of meeting with legislators, talking about policies, proposing ideas, which is really where the change and thought and movement comes from without having drafting authority is completely acceptable, and I support L012.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you. And I just wanted to rise in strong support of this, thank you, of this amendment. I was just reading it. When I became the chair, I looked at length about this part, up to 3 bills. And I questioned when I started, why do we need 3? Maybe we only need 1. And I honestly think it's probably the right thing. I've already committed to one of our COYAC students to run a bill next year as a part of my first 5. So yeah, and that is what makes sense, I think. So I'm in complete support of this. I really appreciate your work on this. So thank you so much.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you. Appreciate the debate and all the discussions and the fact that we could revisit COYAC and the other committees. So I also rise in support of the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of L12. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L12 is adopted. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have another amendment to the bill that I'd like to present, and it's dealing with the Capital Development Committee. With everything that we're doing with the budget this year, I think all of us need to tighten our belts a little bit, and so I'll present this amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L11?
Amendment L11, amend printed bill,
Senator
page 12.
Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L011.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, all we're asking for is that just in the 2025 interim, we do not do any field trips for the Capital Development Committee, and we just say this is a year because we need to tighten our belts so we're not paying for hotel rooms, paying for staff, all that other stuff to go on field trips this year. We're very well aware of the problems that are presented because we didn't have enough money to go around anyway to do all the projects, so we're very well aware of it. My 2 CDC members are here. They both agreed to the amendment. And I think it's good policy that we just, I mean, all of us are dealing with this shortfall, what does Senator from Weld County call it? Structural deficit, and I think that this is one way that we could do to take care of this. So I ask for an aye vote on L11.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the good senator from Sterling for bringing this. I'm the vice chair on CDC, standing here next to the good senator from Pueblo as well. And I do want to stress that I do believe that these trips are important. It's important for us to see throughout the state and see where these projects are. But I also recognize the situation that we're in with our budget here in Colorado, and I think that we do need to lead by example. Granted, I don't think this is a large amount of money that goes to it, but it is an amount of money, and we're going to be asked to make a number of cuts this year. And I think that I'm willing to look at this and obviously have it be temporary, because I do think it's going to be important that we, as a committee, still look at these things. But in the situation that we're in, I am supportive of this amendment, and thank the good senator from Sterling for bringing it.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll echo the comments of the two colleagues who preceded me. And, especially that these trips are at times valuable, and they do provide critical insights, particularly when you see a project proposal in a broader context, when you're on the campus and you see how the need fits like a specific puzzle piece. But that is a small portion of what we do on CDC. We have recommendations from the state architect. Every proposal for renovation has a facilities condition index that we look at that's done through a rigorous process to determine the suitability of the building as it currently exists. You have blueprints that are presented to committee. You have designs presented to committee. We can see the pictures of the components of buildings that need replacement, or why the building itself structurally might need an entire replacement. And so, again, it's hard because there is value to this. And I absolutely want to recognize that. But that's where we've had discussions already, and we'll continue to have discussions throughout the next 50-odd days, is what is the return for the value. And I appreciate, the good senator from northeastern Colorado for bringing this forward, because at the end of the day, the return on investment of this is probably something that we should look to cut, so that we have just a little bit more space for that which is more important to serve the people of Colorado.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I want to acknowledge the work that's been done in the senatorial fives and the caucus and the chamber coming together, realizing that we need to make some cuts and some exceptions. So I humbly ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much. I would join my voice to the minority leaders, and I do want to point out, I'm sorry, the majority leader. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. He'll find me later, I'm confident. I do want to point out and put it in context. Earlier today, we were talking about, or yesterday, quite frankly, when we were debating 188, an $11 or $22 million change. So it would have been 1% solution, maybe 2% solution to the problem we have. This particular amendment is like 1/1,000,000th of a percent of the, but it's a movement in the right direction, which I will take, and I urge your support of the amendment.
See no further discussion. The motion is the adoption of L11. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L011 is adopted. To the bill, Mr. Majority Leader. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L008?
Amendment L008.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L008.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment was something we were going to introduce earlier, but we had to make sure with the other amendments we were okay to clarify that we were drafting around it. This amendment will make the interim committees that are in force that can only do 5 drafts and 3 bills, except for the ones that were, except for the COYAC one that we defined. It also, as we're trying to find places to cut budget, is it's cutting the per diem and the travel expenses for any of the new committees added, except for the ones that were originally in the bill.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L008 is adopted. To the bill. Mr. Minority Leader.
Move for final passage, seconds 199.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 199. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 199 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes still have it. The committee will rise and report. You didn't want us to rise and report just now.
I know, I must do the
Yeah,
will of the
now
people.
you got to do it.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Senator will come to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had one bill under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
March 12, 2025, Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 199, as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 199 is amended, passed in second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 39.
Senate Bill 39 by Senators Bridges and Pelton B. and Representative Martinez and Johnson concerning exemptions from energy use reporting requirements for owners of agricultural buildings.
Senator Bridges. Oh, Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House amendments of Senate Bill 039.
Is there any discussion? Senator Pelton B.
Yeah, all they did in the House is that, thank you, Mr. President, all they did in the House was they just changed it to where they talked about rental of implements and that sort of thing to make sure that we weren't, making sure that Home Depot and Lowe's weren't considered agriculture, but we were still be able to consider agriculture and what it actually is.
Is that all they did? All right, with the motion that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 39, are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, that motion is adopted. Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my good co-sponsor here, and I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 039.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is repassage of Senate Bill 39. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, and 1 vacant, Senate Bill 39 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Committee reports.
Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 157 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 76 be postponed indefinitely. Mr. President, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Board of Real Estate Appraisers, effective July 2nd, 2024, for a term expiring July 1st, 2027. Darius Wise of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as an officer or employee of a commercial banking enterprise, banking experience in real estate lending appointed. Clinton Taylor of Lakewood, Colorado, to serve as a representative of real estate appraisers with experience in appraisal management reappointed.
Signing of bills.
The President has signed Senate Bill 38, 46, and 52.
Announcements. Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just tell everybody that the National Alliance for Mental Illness is in the building today, and if you see them, please be nice to them. I want to tell you another story. Years ago, when my son first got sick, well, a couple of years into it, I discovered NAMI, and I took a class called Family to Family, and it was 12 weeks long. There were 10 or 12 people, and we met every Sunday at a church, and we learned about mental illness, and we learned about each other, And we learned how to go from being angry to being accepting, how to advocate for our person, and then how to do advocacy for other people. And it's a big, huge part of why I'm here. And I love NAMI, and I'm so grateful that they're here, and so grateful that you all are here too.
Senator Colker.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. And just to expand on the good senator from Boulder, NAMI is here today, and also the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, Mental Health Colorado, and Suicide Prevention Coalition of Colorado, as today is Suicide Prevention Advocacy Day. And if you see people out, they're here from 9:30 to 12:30. Your constituents may be in the building. Please make sure you talk to them about the importance of advocacy for people with mental health, especially those considering harms to themselves. It is a personal issue, as you all know, and it's a great day to acknowledge that it's okay to talk, it's okay to get help, it's okay to seek a professional, and make sure that we're all taking care of ourselves. So make sure you're open and talking to your constituents about this too, and I appreciate the moment. Thank you, President Coleman.
You got it. Senator Prince Mullica.
Jesus. Thought I was done with that, Mr. President. Members, State Health and Human Services Committee will be meeting roughly 15 minutes upon adjournment to hear House Bill 1003 and Senate Bill 17 in the old Supreme Court.
Very good. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Senator Mullick and I, we've all been here all day. You're probably pretty hungry. We can't feed you now, but this afternoon or this evening from 5 to 7, the owner-operators of McDonald's, that good, healthy food that you can get, that they have healthy food too, have all kinds of good food. Anyways, we're all invited to a legislative reception at the Art Hotel, just down the street from 5 to 7, and to meet the owner-operators of McDonald's. They would love to meet you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Liston. We're loving it. Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Transportation and Energy is going to be meeting at 1:30 in room 352, or upon adjournment of the adjournment committees. We'll keep you updated. We have several appointments. We have members to the Clean Fleet Enterprise, members to the Community Access Enterprise, members to the Colorado Aeronautical Board, and a member to the Electric Transmission Authority. And then we will be hearing 3 bills, Senate Bill 175, Senate Bill 182, and Senate Bill 30, and I look forward to seeing you this afternoon.
Very good. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Local Government and Housing Committee, we are meeting 15 minutes upon adjournment to hear House Bill 1056 by Senator Roberts and Senator Henderson. And we are meeting in room 357. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Coker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education Committee will be meeting at 1:30 or after the upon adjournment committees. We have 2 bills. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting in a new place. We'll be in Alice BB. We will not be in the old Supreme Court. We will be hearing the confirmation hearings for a number of independent judicial discipline adjudicative board members, followed by House Bill 1015 for action only, and then House Bill 1181 and House Bill 1090 for committee testimony only. The other bills on the calendar will be rescheduled to be heard at a later date. Thank you.
You got it. Any other announcements? Seeing no other announcements, Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for the work today. We cleared a lot of work out from yesterday to today. We will be, no need to return. We will be recessing as we'll be reading bills across the desk. On that, Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 1 p.m. today.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today.